This is the Inquisitive Minds Podcast.
Thank you for tuning into the Inquisitive Minds Podcast. I'm your host, Johnny Smith. With me today, I have a paranormal investigator and member of Celestial Oddities Para Seekers, a Pittsburgh-based paranormal investigation group and radio show, Mr. Tom Barker. Tom, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. How about yourself?
Good.
So you are a paranormal investigator. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
I guess I got into it maybe over 15 years ago. I actually lived in a house that had a lot of activity.
Okay.
And I have a brother that also had a house that had a lot of activity, and we started a group, but I'm no longer with them, and I'm with the Celestial Oddities now.
Okay. So you've been doing it about 15 years. What was your first experience with the paranormal?
It happened in the house I lived in Brookline. I had a little boy walk up to me. I was laying on the couch, and he said, "My name's Billy," and I kind of blinked my eyes, and he was gone.
Oh.
And then we would have like a stereo system that would come on, and we would have... My son was doing his homework at the table, and all of a sudden the binder flew off the table, and I would see shadow people.
Oh, wow. That's all... that'd be terrifying.
Well, I wasn't really terrified, but I didn't know much about it. So I started researching it because I had 3 little kids, and I was married at the time. So I kind of wanted to know what was going on.
And so you didn't have any, childhood encounters. It was all as an adult.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. That's interesting. Has it all been around the Pittsburgh region? I know you do a lot of investigations. Where do you guys travel to?
Well, we went to the Bel Air house in Ohio.
Okay.
Then, where else did we go? Went to a mansion.
Now, a lot of people that I asked about this upcoming interview, they were all very curious about the big events, the things you've seen, the things you've experienced. One guy asked me, "Have you ever been physically touched or even injured by some type of entity?"
Actually, I was. We did a house where I was up in the attic, and there was an old lady that was raped and murdered in the entryway. The house sat vacant for a few years. A lady bought it, and she had a couple kids, and she was saying there was something wrong in the attic situation. So I went up by myself, obviously, in total darkness, and I kind of provoked this thing.
Okay.
And I'm like, come get me, asshole. And then I felt like a burning sensation on my back, and I went down, and my sister-in-law looked at it, and I was bleeding and everything else. So.
Really? On your back? And you were up there by yourself, and it was just...
Yeah, I was kind of sitting in the middle of the attic, nothing around me, just, provoking this thing.
Now that's
which I don't always do, but in this case, it was just something to do.
Fair enough. There's a lot of paranormal investigation shows on TV, and we see a lot of different approaches. You just mentioned you were provoking that one. What is the approach of your investigation? How does one investigate?
Generally, with this group I'm with now, Celestial Oddities, we generally get to a location as a group, and we sit down and we put a REM pod up, try to get a feel for the place and whatever, and then we break off individually.
I'm going to ask you what a REM pod is.
Basically just senses spirits.
Okay.
It has different colored lights and an antenna, and if anything goes near it, different lights go off.
Oh, okay. So like a spirit motion detector type.
Yeah,
thing.
kind of.
That's interesting. Do you use recorders for try and find EVPs?
Yeah, that's actually my favorite device, because electronics I guess there's outside things that could interfere with them, where if you get a digital recorder, which I always have going, that if you get a voice on there's no way to fake that. It is what it is.
Have you gotten some interesting voices?
Oh, yeah, I've had, Get Out. I've heard of all kinds of different things.
Now, when you go to investigate a place, and there's backstory to that, what is the goal of investigating? Is it to find out if there's actually something there, or are you trying to get rid of it for the people?
If we're going to a haunted location, like a famous place, like we were at Hillview Manor, we're going to the where we go next weekend? Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. Now you're not going to get.
Sounds interesting.
You're not going to get rid of those ghosts, you know, and you're not trying to cleanse it. But if you're at a private house, and the people are, we try to get rid of it if they want.
Now, can you tell us a little bit more about? Well, I don't know if I'm sure you are familiar with the theory of some ghosts are there for a purpose, and some are just like on a loop of recording almost.
Right.
What is your theory on that?
A residual haunting basically is just like, you know, playing a tape over and over, and it don't really. But then you have an intellectual haunting where you can interact with them.
Okay, I didn't know that's what they were called.
Well, that's a name.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. With the residual haunting, is there any way to get rid of something like that?
I don't really think so.
Okay, so that's just kind of something.
Yeah, it's just kind of like a loop of something playing over and over and over, and it just keeps happening.
And there's no interaction with that? Like, so it's, I hate to say relatively safe?
Yeah, I would say it's safe because they're really not even interactive. It's just something that's embedded into the area or territory or whatever.
It's like elevator music.
Sure.
It's happening in the background. Now, the intelligent hauntings, they seem like they could be potentially a bit more dangerous and or scary.
Me personally, I don't get scared.
Okay. Well, then you're in the right field.
Because, you know, I've seen apparitions, I've ran after things, I've been attacked, you know, I'm not... See, the way we are is, you know, you see some of these shows and people where, oh my God, the activity's so crazy, we got to get out of here. Well, that's why I'm there.
Okay.
I'm not going to leave because something happened. You know what I mean? I want shit to happen.
I like that approach. I like that approach and understand it. That's really interesting. Now, is there a lot of hostile spirits? I don't know, you know, how the dead feel, obviously, but is there a lot of entities you come into contact with that are more aggressive?
At times, not really. Most of them are fairly well. We were at that Bel Air house in Ohio. It's actually called the Demon House. And one of our people that were with us actually got possessed.
Oh.
And his whole voice changed, his eyes changed, everything. And he just, like, started making this weird laugh and whatever. And I guess he was kind of possessed for about an hour, but luckily Garrett knows how to, like...
Yeah.
He's into the demonology.
Did he do anything to hurt himself or others while he was...
Well, we kind of... It happened in the living room, so we dragged him outside, and I kind of grabbed him. And I'm... Excuse my language, but I'm like, whatever got him, get the fuck out of here, whatever.
Free to speak as you please.
And, you know, he was just kind of out of it. So we ended up dragging him inside, and we all got around the dining room table. And like I said, Garrett did this ritual kind of thing, but it lasted a good hour at least.
Wow. That's crazy. That's wild.
And he was like kind of sitting there, and he's like, oh, it's going up the steps, it's doing this. And he was actually said it was up in the attic. So after all this was over, I'm like, hell with this. I'm going up in the attic by myself.
Yeah.
So I went up, but I didn't have any instruments or anything. And there was a couch up there. I'm like, you know, I ain't going to take this shit from you. I said, you know, this is bullshit. I said, you know, leave us alone kind of thing.
I love the abrasive approach. I really do. That's fascinating. You know, exorcisms isn't something you hear about too much anymore. I know it was real popular for a while, and when you get into the horror genre, it pops back up, but modern day exorcisms isn't something people often think about.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not really into exorcisms and being the exorcist itself, but I'm not afraid to stand up and, you know, I think I'm more powerful than them, so I'm going to let them know I'm in charge.
Now, the Celestial Oddities Para Seekers, do you want to speak about that a little bit more?
Yeah, actually I was with another group, and then I met this guy Garrett, and he's like, he did a lot of things on his own.
Okay.
And, some of these bigger places are expensive. So we ended up getting a group of people together so we can deduct the cost and split the cost and do some of these more active, bigger locations.
Now, can people call you if they feel like they want their property to be investigated?
Definitely, we'll do anything.
Do you
for
guys
anybody.
have a website? Or
Yeah, you can go on our Facebook page. It's Celestial Oddities Para Seekers. We got Instagram. We got all them social media things.
Okay, so guys, if you have any experience that you feel want to be investigated, please reach out. Celestial Oddities Para Seekers. They're on Facebook. I see them doing investigations all the time. Now, in the paranormal, oftentimes that can affect our other views. Do you mind if I ask you how if it has affected your religious views at all? I don't know what they even are.
Well, I was I was raised Catholic, and it's one of those things where there's a lot of people that are, I went to church one time, and I stayed for the whole Mass, and I blocked somebody in a parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
And they come on, they start MFing me because I stayed for the whole thing.
Oh.
And they left the communion. So I think there was a lot of, I don't necessarily think, I believe there's a higher spirit and all that stuff, but I don't think you actually have to go to church and all that.
I agree with that. Organized religion is a bit of a mess, especially now. Are there places in PA that civilians can explore to do like almost tours of little investigations?
Well, actually, last night we went to a place that's called Dead Man's Hollow in McKeesport.
Okay.
Basically, it's a nature preserve kind of thing run by Allegheny Trust Company or something.
Okay.
But there's like ruins of an old factory. There was I guess it was a terracotta factory.
Okay.
But the property itself is like 400 acres, and you could walk in. There's actually people camping that kind of ruined our investigation. They kind of snuck in with a tent and stuff.
Now, did you guys happen to come across anything last night?
We all heard screams, and, there was maybe 10 of us, and we kind of split up at the one point, and a couple guys, I wasn't there, but my son and a couple other people went up on the hill, and they said they had a lot of activity and heard a lot of things, and they heard screams also. And, we had different hits on REM pods and K2 meters.
What's a K2 meter?
Basically, it's the same as they all sense electromagnetic fields. Basically.
Okay. And that's kind of like the plane of existence the spirits move in?
Yeah. There's all kinds of different dimensions. We live in the third dimension, but there's several other dimensions you can. And I don't do it personally, but I know psychics and people who are in the. But they all meditate, and they can actually get to a different dimension to where the spirit levels are.
Anything like astro projection type?
No,
I don't know how it works myself.
I don't know either, to be honest with you.
Now,
but I'm friends with a woman who I can send her a picture, and she can look at the picture and tell me all kinds of different things about it.
Oh,
just by a photograph.
That's interesting. Like a medium reader or something.
Yeah.
Like that? Oh, that's very interesting. A lot of times we hear, especially when we talk about these types of investigations, temperature changes. Have you experienced those, and what exactly do those mean?
I've experienced temperature changes, and I guess the theory is they're trying to manifest themselves some way, so they're using the energy around them, and it just becomes a colder spot.
Wow. I've always wondered, why watching TV shows there was never an angry entity that would heat up the room. I would always think that would be a thing, but now when people talk to you and about investigating a place, how do you vet them out?
What was that again?
How do you vet them out? Like, because there's got to be a percentage of people that are, not telling the full truth and are just making stuff up. How do you guys tell the difference between those people?
It's really hard to. I mean, a lot of people. I'll give you an example. I had a lady that called me at like 3 a.m, and she said she had a demon llama in her living room.
A demon llama.
A demon llama.
Okay.
It was a llama with glowing red eyes, and I didn't even know how to respond. I'm kind of like,
yeah,
yeah, okay, but you got to kind of take them seriously, because even though I may not believe it, they're believing it. So you can't just say, well, you're a moron, leave me alone. So, it's a delicate situation. You're dealing with people, and you don't want to be rude. And actually, this is with the other team. We went and investigated the place, but it was up in Johnstown, PA.
Okay.
And and I started researching Johnstown itself because I knew there was a flood there and everything else. And there were like several thousand people died in the streets. And,
oh, wow. I had no idea.
And there was like a mass burial, and there was 2 tribes of Indians that lived there before.
I had no idea of any of this, actually.
Yeah, actually, you don't really pay attention until you're put in a situation.
Yeah. When you guys investigated the demon llama situation, did you come to any conclusions?
Yeah, kind of. The lady was nuts.
But
we did. There was a little bit of activity, but I think she was the type where if anything happened, she would blow it out of proportion or whatever.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Almost like a spiritual hypochondriac.
Yeah, something like that would be a good way of putting it.
Now, with a lot of these experiences, are there a lot of common similarities that you find?
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to figure out how to explain it. I don't know. Move on to another question.
Okay.
We'll come back to that one.
Fair enough. Is there a better time of the day to investigate?
They say 3 a.m.'s like the witching hour and all that, but I personally think you can find activity any time of day or night.
Okay.
If you're looking for it.
That's fair enough. From your experiences, since this is like the world you're living in, and this is just a fan's question, what is a realistic scary movie that you've seen? Because a lot of them, I believe, are blown out of proportion. Is there one you've seen that you thought, okay, that one makes semi-sense?
I very rarely watch movies. I'm not a big movie fan, but like at Paranormal Activity or whatever, where they set up the cameras, I can relate to that because we have a DVR system we always set up.
Okay.
With like 4 cameras recording total darkness and things. So I could at least relate to that part of the movie.
That's interesting. I want to know, is the entities, you're able to communicate with them sometimes?
Yeah, we can ask them questions. They can give responses audibly. I mean, I've heard voices. I've got EVPs. We've had, spirits interact with equipment, ask them a question, and, the equipment would go off one way or another.
Oh, that's interesting. Now, that question leads into one a friend of mine asked. He said, have you ever come into contact with some entities that are reluctant to communicate due to like an anger?
I wouldn't. I mean, we've gone to locations and not caught anything just because.
Yeah.
Whether it's due to them being angry.
I guess I guess he's asking more about the instances you may have come into contact with a entity that's hostile.
I've come in a couple hostile entities.
Yeah, can you elaborate a little bit?
Well, like I said, I got attacked in that one attic.
Yeah.
I've been pushed. I've had my hair pulled. I've, been touched. I've had a lot of. And then I'm not saying they were strictly angry spirits that did it, but.
When you got your hair pulled, strong, like physical, like boom?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, it was
wow.
like, it'd be like you pulling my hair almost.
Okay.
I mean, it like didn't jar my head real
Yeah, but
hard
just like
or
a
anything,
human.
but you could definitely feel.
Now, for people out here that have these experiences but either don't want to talk about them or are reluctant, what advice would you give if someone wanted to do some amateur investigating?
Well, I mean, everybody got cell phones now. They can either record something. Like I said, I'm a big fan of just the digital recorder. Sit there
Okay.
and ask some questions. I mean, that's something you can even download apps that have
And that
a
you
digital recorder.
do you hear the answers live or on the playback?
Generally on the playback.
Okay, that's interesting. That makes me wonder, like, what plane of, you know what I mean, where they're
Right, back to what plane are they on and we're on.
like, because they can respond in the recording, but we can't hear it live. It's interesting. It's very interesting. Um, Now, has there been more instances of group hauntings? Like when you go to asylum, is it just a bunch of different activity, or have you focused more on individual presences?
Well, generally, if you go to one of these real big places, they have a guide, they let you in, they take you through a quick tour, tell you, you know, there's obviously more than one spirit because different things have happened throughout the course of the year or years.
Yeah.
And so there's definitely more than one in different areas. They'll tell you, well, this guy did this, he hung himself, this guy was mentally ill, this, you know what I mean? So there was, and a lot of those places had a lot of deaths and things.
A lot of times too, at least the stories that we hear about that are more famous are of apparitions that are of like the late 1800s period. Um, have you been able to have more experiences with more recent entities?
Um,
Like, have you seen anybody that's like maybe died in the 70s, casual, instead of 100 years ago?
no, I haven't, but one of our team members from the other team was just killed on a motorcycle.
Oh, I'm
He hit
sorry
a
to hear that.
deer. So I went to the scene of the accident like 2 days later with a digital recorder,
Mm-hmm.
and I asked a bunch of questions. And I actually had a psychic tell me he wanted to leave a message for you, and I honestly haven't listened to it yet.
Okay.
But you know, I figured I'd give it a shot.
Yeah, that's worst thing you could do is try. You know,
Right.
you get nothing. You get nothing. Um, Tom, I want to thank you for coming in today. Really appreciate the interview. Again, it's the Celestial Oddities Para Seekers. You can find them on Facebook or on Instagram.
Right.
Any questions, they reach out. You know, worst you could do. Anything else you'd like to promote?
No, pretty much Celestial Oddities.
Okay.
Follow us. We're going to be going. We're trying to book that place in Rhode Island, the original Conjuring House.
Okay,
We're
that's
going to be
fascinating.
doing a couple places in New York. We're going back to the Demon House. So follow us. We're going to start a YouTube channel and try to make some documentaries that people can watch. And
That sounds interesting, guys. Get in on the ground floor now.
and like I said, we're going to be totally real with everybody. We're not going to fake things. We're not going to overreact. We're not going to run out screaming.
See, that's the aspect I like, because a lot of times it's over exaggerated when it's, they heard a bump in the distance.
Right. And if nothing happens, we'll say, hey, nothing happened. We don't, we're not out to be famous. We're just trying to be real.
Hey, as long as you follow your passion, that's what's important.
Exactly.
If you enjoy doing it, keep doing it. Guys, thank you very much for tuning in. Check us out at all streaming platforms or inquisitiveminds.com. Remember, it's spelled a little bit different. INQUIZATIVE minds.com. Thank you very much.
Thanks.